of Utah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, governors, both, for being here. Appreciate your service and your commitment to our country and your states, and I appreciate the opportunity to ask you a few questions. Governor Rendell, how many jobs have been created in Pennsylvania with the stimulus?
Well, so far, of the $17 billion that's coming into Pennsylvania, about $1 billion has been spent. Now, when I told you that 131 of our 242 projects are underway,
right?
You know, we pay as you go. You know, we reimburse for work done by the contractor. So that number is going to ramp up very, very, very fast. I would say on creation of jobs, probably a couple of thousand at this point. On retention of jobs, probably 5,000 to 10,000.
But is there any metric? I mean, I guess one of the things we struggle with is everybody estimating and guessing. I mean, the real number that we look at is the unemployment rate, and it's skyrocketed.
Well,
it has not achieved nearly what it's
for us, though. Our unemployment rate is about 1.25 points below the national average. Still horrible,
right?
You know, horrific, but 1.25 points below the national average. I think stimulus has helped us to some degree, and again, the state stimulus adding to the federal stimulus, I think, has been very effective for us. Whereas we're just starting work on the bridges and roads with the federal stimulus, our accelerated bridge program, we had targeted 470 bridges, and we're working on 420 of them now. So that's had an effect. It's difficult to understand, and I know each of us want definitiveness.
Well, the problem is, when you say $1 billion and talk about 2,000 jobs, and yet we hear from the testimony from the Office of Management and Budget that one of the most important things you can do is get people back, money back into people's pockets.
Well, there's no question.
That we're going to create 70% of the jobs created in this country are created from small businesses.
No question.
Yet, when I hear Governor O'Malley talk about 700 jobs, those are 700 government jobs.
No, but first and foremost, the retention of jobs initially, the biggest.
I mean, pardon me, Governor. My time
okay.
is so short. I know I'm interrupting you. With all due respect, your numbers directly coincide from what we heard from the Office of Management and Budget. The federal government has spent some $75 billion, and yet can only point to 150,000 jobs. We're talking about $500,000 if I'm doing the math correct.
I think I can explain that.
And your numbers are somewhat similar to that, which is very revealing.
I think I can explain that, though, Congressman. A lot of that $1 billion has gone to individuals. It's gone to the worker who lost his job and is getting unemployment comp. He's now
But that's not creating jobs. I mean,
no, I understand. But what I'm saying is, remember, the stimulus had a number of different goals, and I hope everyone in Congress.
My understanding, it was jobs, jobs, jobs.
Right. It was, but it was also relief for people in need. So, would you consider giving an unemployed worker longer period of unemployment compensation and a higher stipend? That's not going to create, maybe he'll have more money to spend.
I agree with you.
But do you think that was an appropriate thing to do under stimulus?
Like when you go out and you spend billions of dollars, there are going to be jobs created, and there's going to be relief given to people.
Right.
I understand
and
that.
relief was part of
what
it.
I understand, but I guess where conceptually
demand.
I disagree with is the idea and the notion that where government is creating jobs. They're creating government jobs. The perspective I have is let's empower people. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and Governor, I'll give you a chance.
Sure, that's okay.
That we heard in earlier testimony is that 28 states have raised taxes, which you say, quote, deepens the impact of the downturn. And is that your perspective as well? If you raise taxes within the state, would that, quote, deepen the impact of the downturn?
It depends on the scope of the increase, number one. But number two, without the stimulus, those 28 states would have had to raise taxes infinitely greater. I mean, you got to understand that. Right now, this year that concluded, Pennsylvania's revenues.
I guess the question is who should pay for it, and I want to give Governor O'Malley a chance here too.
That's
what's offensive, I think, to a lot of people is that states that weren't managed as well have to end up paying the tab for, you know, states like Utah. We balance our budget. We don't have that. We had a $400+ million rainy day fund. We didn't even have to tap into that.
And
we cut expenses.
I would submit to you that if you looked at the demographic of Utah, it's totally different than the demographic of Pennsylvania and Maryland when it comes to people living below the poverty line, the number of disabled people, the number of special ed students. You can't compare apples to oranges. But the one thing that I wanted to say is, look, I think the stimulus bill was misnamed. Part of it was stimulus, part of it was job creation, but a lot of it was relief. And
part of the semantics, I guess, we're struggling with is what the jobs are.
But that's why I would like to see again, and I know my guess is you're not very in favor of an additional stimulus, but if you do it, just do infrastructure. I guarantee you, you can come to any one of my infrastructure projects.
3.5% of the stimulus was infrastructure, as I understand it, roads and bridges. I mean,
think
that's
it's a little
that's
higher
the
than that. But look,
scam wow, you know?
do
Like, come on.
infrastructure, because I can bring you to every infrastructure project we've got going, and you will see people working who weren't working before. You'll see Pennsylvania factories getting orders that didn't have orders before. And that's what it's all about.
And they work for private companies.
And they work for private companies. They don't work for us.
Gentleman's time has long expired.
Thank you,
But
Mr.
Mr. Chairman,